जी, we've started.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear audience, we are again with you once more with series of our webinars on important international affairs and issues from the Global and Regional Studies Center at the IoBM. I am Ambassador Ghulam Rasool Baluch, and today we have a very distinguished panel, Ambassador Asif Durrani, who is a prolific writer, avid reader, a intellectual and a thinker, and in fact a thought leader. He writes extensively, he lectures extensively, and he's working as a fellow at our International Policy Center in Islamabad. And we have Mr. Brohi, who would be joining us shortly. He's also an ambassador. Mr. Brohi is a former ambassador. He's a writer, and he's the author of several books on international relations. He writes extensively in newspapers on national and international affairs. The subject today we're going to discuss, as you might have seen in the brochure, is the Afghanistan Imbroglio, moving from chaos to sustainable peace. No other foreign policy issue has been so vital for Pakistan as the Afghan issue. Somehow we are kind of intertwined brothers, linked to each other, Afghanistan and Pakistan, so to say, since millennia. And somehow the ups and downs of Pakistan somehow are related to Afghanistan. Several Central Asian invaders, they entered this land, in which constitutes Pakistan and beyond, that is subcontinent. So I think Afghanistan has had a profound impact on the history, culture, sociology, and the civilization as such on the subcontinent. I may be not wrong that the civilization today we see in the subcontinent has had profound historical impact from Afghanistan. So Afghanistan, even if we want to wish away that we won't interfere, there are a lot of people to say, why should we be interfering in Afghanistan, so on and so forth. You cannot, you have no choice but to be part of, to be impacted by Afghanistan. And in the recent history, that is about 4 decades or so since the Russian invasion and their withdrawal and subsequent disintegration, and as well as our involvement in the Western, to support the Western alliance to defeat Soviet Union at Afghanistan, we saw like foundational changes in our governance structure, in our economy, in our ecology, even demography has been changed because of the inflow of refugees and their impact on the environment. Pakistan has had to pay an enormous cost. Of course, our worthy panelist will be telling us as well. But a very cursory view of the losses that Pakistan suffered. I think the casualties, 70,000 plus, including our valiant armed forces, civilians, innocent civilians, our ecology. In fact, I was doing a study at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that it could be the total losses, which pastors, the business opportunities gone, the housing, and the cost of civic services and the burden on it in our small and big cities because of the influx of the refugees could be in the range of $500 billion. Although the official figures, they put the losses to $170 billion, but my calculation that time, I'm talking of 2002, were about $500 billion. Today we'll see that how this chaos came to, and we as we said, it is difficult for Pakistan to scale. So I think I'll request Ambassador Durrani to just briefly walk us through, very briefly, on salient points salient events which led to the chaos, and then we'll move on to how we can now move to achieve the lofty objective of sustainable peace in Afghanistan. And of course, the peace in Afghanistan is very much part of our peace of Pakistan. So may I request Ambassador Durrani? Now we are happy to have Ambassador Alam Brohi to join us. Ambassador Alam Saab, we just gave a little brief on the issue of Afghanistan. So we have requested Ambassador Asif Durrani to walk us through the chaos part of the proposition. And then we'll also come back to you to also give your take as to how Pakistan could have or not have avoided the fallout of the Afghan crisis. Ambassador Durrani, could you let's just walk us through a little bit on the little background so that we the audience are on the same page. Thank you. Asif Durrani, please, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador G.R. Baluch. It is an honor to be sharing a forum with you, and I'm also grateful to GRSC for organizing this webinar on a very important topic, because as you have rightly pointed out that Afghanistan has in fact become part of us, and especially during the past 4 decades, ever since we marched into Afghanistan, and then it is quite futuristic topic to say that how we can move from chaos to sustained peace. So I think you can pick up any thread on Afghanistan, and you will find that it is linked to Pakistan, because there is a symbiotic relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan. It is a natural trading route for the Afghans, not only for the Afghans, but the whole of Central Asia. And they have been passing through Pakistan territory, onwards to India. Even before 1947, this used to be the route, and it has always been the route. And it is going to remain the route, despite all faced during the past 4 decades, especially. It is in fact, with the 4 phases of Afghanistan, not going in the beginning or the history of Afghanistan, but let's begin from the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, which actually became the main reason for Pakistan's involvement, because there was a heavy influx of Afghan refugees into Pakistan. And in fact, it endangered otherwise the national security, because whenever there is a chaos, there is problem in a neighboring country, so you are bound to be affected. And Pakistan was impacted the most, because the first refugee influx took place to Pakistan, not to Iran. Iran was subsequently, people moved to Iran from those parts of Pakistan were neighbors to Hazarajat areas in Afghanistan. Second phase, if you look at it, is the post-withdrawal period. So Soviet troops were in Afghanistan for 1 decade. And when they withdrew in 1989, so it left a chaos. It was an attempt was made to install a national government, but it failed. And former President Najibullah, Dr. Najibullah, he continued. He could resist for 2.5 years. Then he also had to succumb to the Mujahideen's pressure. Once so the second phase started when Mujahideen took over in 1992, about defeating the Soviets, but they could not sustain their victory. And the result was, from the day one, Afghanistan was plunged into chaos. And that chaos we see in the form of almost a civil war situation, which pushed further Afghans to move towards Pakistan. So even during the Mujahideen's rule, when President Mujaddidi and then followed by President Burhanuddin Rabbani, when they took over, so almost the refugee population reached to Pakistan close to 4 million people. So, and this chaotic condition was a source of concern for all the neighbors of Afghanistan. Pakistan was not an exception. And that's how that the Uzbekistan Islamic movement, it got intensity. And then it impacted this neighboring Tajikistan. It impacted other Central Asian states. Iran became a stakeholder, so the Russians. China was skeptical because of the Uyghur movement, and their militants, in fact, got encouragement, and that is the period when the Uyghur Islamic movement got more teeth, and they moved inside Afghanistan. So in these all chaotic conditions, particularly in Afghanistan, what happened was that the Taliban rose, and they, in fact, they were not someone who were aliens or who came from any other universe, but they were from among the Mujahideen groups. They belonged to different Afghan Mujahideen parties, so they formed. And it started, as you all know, from Kandahar and onwards, then they spread. Once Taliban were in power, they almost controlled the 90% of the territory of the country. And then happens 9/11. We all know. So during the Taliban period, one thing needs to be understood is that Taliban, while they may have triumphed in Afghanistan, they may have controlled 90% territory of the country, but they did not enjoy recognition, universal recognition. They were only recognized by Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Even subsequently, Saudi Arabia and UAE, they distanced from the Taliban rule when the question of Osama bin Laden was confronted by them, and when the American pressure started. And but they would not give in as far as handing over of Osama bin Laden was concerned. So here you think the things started cooking up. Our people, they say that Taliban brought peace in the country. Some critics say that it was peace of the graveyard, the kind of ruthlessness they exercised against their opponents. So they did not bring in reconciliation inside the country. They brought in repression, and through repressive methods, if you want to establish peace, that cannot be durable, because your opponents are going to challenge that repression, or they want to challenge that occupation, or they would always want to challenge the rate of the state, which wants to dictate its terms against the wishes of the people. And we should not forget that Afghanistan is not a monolith. Afghans are not monolith. They have different ethnic and religious identities. And being Afghans, they want to assert their identity. So that's why Afghanistan remained chaotic. And they also hobnobbed with the outside powers. So during the Taliban period, what we see is that Iran, Russia, and India formed a nexus. And when we see this nexus, so that in fact gave materialistic support to the opponents of the Taliban, or the formerly known as the Northern Alliance, which was led by Mr. Ahmad Shah Massoud. So why I'm saying this, that just to freshen our audiences, that I'm sure they all know
Yeah,
that,
correct,
but
correct.
so
Thank you,
just
thank you. Durrani Sahab, I will come back to you. I'll come back to you to move forward from 9/11, basically. But now Mr. Alam Brohi has joined us. So
yeah.
I'll also take his perspective. Um, Alam Brohi Sahab, can you sort of share your thoughts uh, on Pakistan's? I mean, I think is of course we look forward to a future, but still, I think a retrospective view of what we did should be taken so that in future we have the right bearings. So you think in the in post 9/11 and before, Pakistan again twice becoming a frontline state to confront. First was that the Soviets, and later the Taliban as a force. How much it cost us in terms of lost opportunities, political opportunities, economic, social losses, ecological, demographic, and overall, I think most of all, our image and perception about Pakistan. Durrani Sahab also ask you later in my subsequent that how our being bracketed with Afghanistan has affected our perception. So, would you kindly, Alam Baroi Sahab, enlighten us on the cost that Pakistan had to really pay for uh, being part of first a what they call it non-NATO ally in war against Soviet Union, and then later a campaign by the US against the Taliban. Alam Baroi Sahab, over to you.
Thank you, Baluch Sahab. Thank you very much. The first, we should go back to the intervention, military intervention of Soviet Union in Afghanistan. I must say that Pakistan was actually caught between the fire and the wall because we didn't have much knowledge or advanced knowledge of what the Soviets will do in Afghanistan. Though there was this revolution, and then there were counter revolutions, and there was chaos and anarchy in Afghanistan, which is in our immediate neighborhood. So we were worried about the security situation in the region, I must say. That is why the forces in charge of the security were thinking in a different way. So then internationally also, the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan was being considered as a move to achieve the old cherished dream of Soviet Union to have access to the warm waters of Indian Ocean. So that is why we were convinced that after stabilizing their position in Afghanistan, maybe the Red Army would head towards Pakistan. So that is why this was the first, if you say, the motivation for Pakistan to jump into this war. But the second was also there were a lot of inducements from the sole superpower and our Arab friends in terms of military hardware and financial assistance. And then the military dictator at that time was also looking for wider recognition of his power in Pakistan. So he wanted some sort of legitimacy for his regime also. So these were mostly the three factors which prompted us to join this war. This was in 1989. Okay, once we were in it, then it was difficult to get out of it. So, but finally, I think the military leadership handled it very well, and the Soviet Union was forced to withdraw from Afghanistan. That was in June 1989. Okay, but then once the Soviet Union forces were out of Afghanistan, the Western world, led by the US and our Arab friends, they just washed off their hand and left Afghanistan to the charge of Pakistan. You remember that we had multiple political parties from Afghan side on our soil, and we were trying to have a broad-based government there after the withdrawal of the Soviet troops. But I must say that we failed to evolve such a broad-based political consensus among our Afghan friends. So the disturbance was always there. The civil war was there. They were fighting with each other through their proxies. And then we had all this, war between the Pancheri group and the Gulbuddin Hikmat Yar in Jalalabad. So there was bloodletting, there was chaos, there was disturbance, and that is why then we had this Afghan Taliban factor. Afghan
Thank
Taliban
you.
factor.
Ji.
Yes.
Ji, Brohi Sahab, I think we probably have kind of unwrapped the chaos part of it. But my central point comes, which is to both of you, distinguished panelists, that Pakistan's role of little God, if you will, in Afghanistan, and we all agree that there have been enormous cost. Now, if that little God role has been again foisted upon us because we'll fast forward since time is a constraint. So the Taliban, who were pariah a couple of years back, are now interlocutors with the power that be, that is the US. And Pakistan, one of the part of the problem is now part of the solution. That is what the government and the people and the intellectuals like you have been saying to the Western world. So the strategic facilitator role that Pakistan has been foisted with, how best Pakistan can play, there are a lot of constraints. Durrani Sahab, can you elaborate on this term, if you like, the strategic facilitator role that Pakistan has been foisted with? Do you think what are the best options for us as a strategic facilitator, so that the peace comes in Afghanistan and we also have dividends for them, for the Afghani people foremost, and subsequently for the people and for our own country? Ambassador Durrani.
So I would be quite cautious of assigning any role or assuming any role for Pakistan. Reason is, yes, we can be a facilitator, but the strategic part, I think, should be left to the Afghans themselves.
I hear you.
We can take the Afghans as the saying goes, that we can take the horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. So for Afghans, facilitation is that we should provide them the environment, and that environment now exists. Why I say that? That is right now in the neighborhood, immediate neighborhood of Afghanistan, i.e. Pakistan, Iran, Russia and China. Russia, because the Central Asian states of Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, they look towards Russia for their security. So therefore, there is a consensus among the immediate neighbors of Afghanistan to have peace in Afghanistan. And Americans are on board. Therefore, you would recall that a few months ago, a quadrilateral meeting of Pakistan, America, Russia, and China took place. And in that, it was, in fact, agreed that for a responsible withdrawal of American troops, there's a need to encourage the peace process. So therefore, despite glitches in the peace process, it moved after signing of February 2020 agreement between the US and Taliban. Now it has reached to a stage where they have started negotiating. Just a month ago, they in fact agreed on the agenda of the talks. Earlier, they took almost 7 months to discuss to come to round on 12th of September for the intra-Afghan dialogue. So it is moving with the snail's pace, but it is understandable because the kind of mistrust which you find among the Afghan stakeholders, that is unprecedented and understandable as well. So therefore, big stakes are involved for the Afghan stakeholders. For them, it is different ethnic groups which want their share in the cake. So are the religious minorities, whether Shias or Ismailis, they want their share in the cake. And then there are, of course, inside spoilers in Afghanistan, which are the part and parcel of war economy. War economy thrives on gun running and narcotics. Afghanistan has become a narco state. It, in fact, is a $50 billion trade in Europe. And from that, 10%, which means $5 billion, come to Afghanistan. And who is who of Afghanistan benefits from that narco trade, including the Taliban? So Afghan officials, whether they are politicians, warlords, or they are in the Afghan national security forces, they all have a share in that narco trade. So those people who are part of this war economy, for them, suing for peace would be suicidal. So they would not want peace returning to Afghanistan. So they are the spoilers, number one. But the proxy spoilers like India, for them, it is quite easy for them because already if the internal spoilers in Afghanistan are available, so they will only have to cough up some money and they can do their job. For India, it is not Afghanistan per se. It's Afghanistan's proximity to Pakistan, which it can use as a launching pad, and which India has been doing that. And the dossiers which last month Pakistan had issued clearly indicates that how Afghan soil has been used, how some officials of the NDS have been part of that process. So there's a need. So why I'm saying this, and it's as a footnote, because we have to understand the different actors which are at play and which will have an impact on the overall Afghan peace process. So in that respect, right now, whatever peace efforts are being made, now you have seen Taliban delegation has been here. They met with the foreign minister, they met with the prime minister. And now this meeting also happened in consultation with the Afghan government, because the Afghan president and their foreign ministry, they endorsed that we endorse Taliban delegation meeting with Pakistan. So while we can facilitate, in a sense, we can give perspective as a neighbor and as a neighbor which has big stakes in Afghanistan. When you want to say big stakes in Afghanistan, primarily it is because you have the refugees, one. Secondly, Afghanistan is a landlocked country. And traditionally, Afghanistan prefers Pakistan's territory for their trade, for their social interaction because of the divided ethnic tribes. Iran does not face that kind of ethnic division along their borders, except for some Baluch. So Baluch are on Baluchistan side, in Nimroz, it is in Afghanistan side, and then Iranian Baluchistan, which is called Sistan Baluchistan. That is there. The other ethnic groups are not Iranian in origin. So for the Iranians, this is not the problem. Yes, Turkoman, yes, there are some divided Turkomans. So are the Uzbeks, but their ethnic composition is not linked to Uzbekistan or Tajikistan or their day-to-day affairs. But they are actually linked with Afghanistan and by proxy with Pakistan. So what I'm trying to say is that peace process has to be, you have to tread very carefully. When you say Pakistan is, demigod or this, I think that these are the terms which I think may perhaps mislead about our role in Afghanistan. We cannot play a bigger role. We just can play the right role. We should play the right role. When I say right role, my advice is
Excellent, excellent.
no. Just let me finish in 2 sentences. When we say
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
we should play,
Ji,
then we should not play favorites with Afghans. We should remain a neutral
okay.
but available partner for the Afghanistan, so that we can have wider acceptability with the Afghans. Thank you.
Okay, I'll come back to you to further proceed on how we are on this pitch, since our Prime Minister is a cricketer, so I love to use the word pitch here. So on the Afghan pitch, what is the game plan that probably our captain would like our diplomats to play? Brohi Sahab, I would request you to kindly let us have your views that what are the pitfalls and what is that can help these peace negotiations to proceed and for Pakistan to play that positive role, that limited role that Ambassador Durrani alluded to. Ambassador Adam Brohi Sahab.
Sir, I have no reason to disagree with Ambassador Asif Durrani Sahab. Whatever he has pointed out, these actors, these factors are very much there in Afghanistan, affecting the peace process. Of course, there are peace spoilers, and the main peace spoiler is India there in Afghanistan. India would never want to lose influence in Afghanistan, because India has not been playing a positive role there as far as Pakistan is concerned. We all know it, and even the international or regional countries know it. They have been using the Afghan territory to destabilize Pakistan's Baluchistan province. Number two, India was helping and prompting and then helping Afghan leadership to construct a big dam on Kabul River to impede the flow of water of Kabul River into Indus River. We know that KPK or this part of Afghan territory, or the KPK is the last, you must say, the last area or region or Kabul River to have more right over the water of the Kabul River. So actually Indians were not playing a positive role in helping to construct the dam, but they wanted to create shortage of water in Pakistan for agriculture purposes. So India, again then, I think India would be trying to prop up the Ashraf Ghani regime to deny as much power to Taliban as possible.
Hmm.
India does not want Taliban to have a dominant or at least equal share in power in Kabul, because India cannot maintain its influence in Afghanistan in the presence of Taliban. So the main peace spoiler is India. Similarly, I agree with Ambassador Asif that the situation in Iran is also different, because Afghans, they have more interaction with their brethren in Pakistan than in India, or in Iran, sorry. There are ethnic groups also, Shia groups, which have interaction with Afghanistan, with the Iran leadership, or they have facilities from Iran government. But as such, the Afghan nation does not have that much privilege, that much facilities in Iran as in Pakistan. So it is now clear. And this is a historical fact, and we cannot reduce it or we cannot impede it. This flow of interaction between people will remain there, part of the history, part of this region. So we should not think of restraining or restricting the interaction between the Afghans from both sides of the border. We should facilitate it for that. And then,
Thank you, sir. Yeah, go ahead. I'll come back to you. Yeah, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Then there is internationally recognized right of Afghanistan to have transit trade through Pakistan, because it is a landlocked country and it depends on the seaports of Pakistan for its foreign trade. So Afghanistan, unless, you know, Iran and India, they try to have an alternative arrangement for Afghan transit trade through Chabahar. But I don't think Chabahar will be a good alternative to Pakistani seaports.
So, do you think that there's a convergence of interest of Iran and India somehow or the other, where they would, hypothetically speaking, see a reduced Pakistani role in Afghanistan? Is there any convergence? Durrani Sahab, can you give a take, and then Brohi Sahab, I'll come back to you with the next question.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, sir? Sorry.
Yeah, I said, you see, we kind of look at the role of India. We looked at the role of India and Iran. India, you said that was a kind of a spoiler in the whole process from the beginning, and he continues to do that. I think partly this may be our perception also being, and also I think India has shown it beyond any doubt that it has been using Afghan territory against Pakistan. But is there any possibility, you think, of India getting Iran to its side and making and threaten that sustainability of peace that we are sort of aspiring, or the Afghans they aspire for? So if at all there is some kind of a possibility, what Pakistan can do to avert such an alliance between or some such understanding between Iran and India on Afghanistan, which may not be favorable to Pakistan?
I don't think that India and Iran will be on the same page as far as Afghanistan is concerned. Primarily now, India's proximity with the United States makes Iran suspicious of the Indian designs, first. Secondly, Iran wants American troops out of Afghanistan because they are already under pressure from the Americans and because of their sanctions. And if India wants to do anything or mischief. And then thirdly, Iran, Pakistan have been discussing Afghanistan also very closely. I have been ambassador there, and there is a dialogue mechanism in which we discuss bilateral as well as issues of the region, including Afghanistan. So there is a close interaction. And now there is a consensus, as I said in the beginning, among the neighbors of Afghanistan, immediate neighbors of Afghanistan, to have stability in Afghanistan. And I think for that, each country has played its role in making these Afghan stakeholders understand that peace has a premium, and they will benefit if peace returns to Afghanistan. Iran will benefit, Pakistan will benefit, Central Asia will benefit. The biggest benefit will come through enhanced connectivity among these regions. So when connectivity and infrastructure is laid, and including TAPI, the gas pipeline, that will also benefit India. So India's role can be positive, provided the Indians understand and they don't use Afghanistan to pressurize Pakistan. And then if they want to pressurize Pakistan, it means then they don't want to resolve the bilateral issues. If they want to pressurize Pakistan in order to achieve their objectives, so they have failed. Now it is the Indians have been checkmated to a greater extent as far as Afghanistan's political chess game is concerned. There is a reason, because geographically India does not enjoy the advantage which direct neighbors have the advantage, but direct neighborhood itself at times become a problem for the country, liabilities. So in my view, India can play a positive role by way of development activities, by way of contributing to the peace process. And then I think India will also have to realize that if they have good relationship with the neighbors, I think Indians will also benefit a lot, and especially with regard to the connectivity issue. If they want to continue, if they continue to pressurize Pakistan, or they don't want to address the bilateral issues, then it means then they will cut themselves off of Pakistan and rest of Pakistan, which means all the Central Asian states. They have tried to establish their links through Chabahar, but I think Indians have also realized that Chabahar is economically not viable. Certainly not viable for the perishables, because anything starting from Kandla port, from Gujarat to Chabahar to Zaranj, Dilaram to Kabul will take 20 to 22 days. So perishables can't reach in 22 days, even if they are refrigerated, because their shelf life gets damaged and limited. On durables, India cannot compete in Afghanistan or in Central Asian states because of Russia and China. Indians cannot compete Chinese in their own market. So India will have to realize that they can actually benefit through the energy resources of Central Asia, through the pipelines. And that would be the big, in fact, advantage to them, provided they also realize that they have to enter into a concord with Pakistan, and provided they realize that through economic diplomacy, they can earn, and they can earn the respect, as well as they can earn the prosperity. And then everyone ends up winner. So this is my humble submission with regard to India.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we have discussed enough. There's one important, because we are still discussing the neighborhood of Afghanistan, because that will probably determine the future of sustainability of peace in Afghanistan. I think the most other important neighbor of Afghanistan is China, and to a lesser extent is Russia. Ambassador Alam Brohi Saab, can you sort of enlighten us on the role China is playing, very positive role, and what it could play to make it sustain? Just one announcement. We have a very distinguished participant, Dr. Adil from Minhaj University. He's the HOD. We welcome him. Ambassador Alam Brohi Saab, could you enlighten us on China's role and how Pakistan and China can really join together to realize that dream of a sustainable peace in Afghanistan, which has obviously political and economic and many other dividends for Pakistan as well as for Afghanistan. Alim Brohi.
The Chinese interest in the question of Afghanistan is not a new. I must say that China started taking interest in the Afghanistan problem even before we had arrangements with China for CPEC or the Gwadar seaport. Basically, China is and has been historically and is also worried about the disturbances, ethnic disturbances, or political ambitions of Turkestan, East Turkestan leadership in Kashgar or Xinjiang. So this is not a new issue for China. It has been an issue for China for a long years. Even it was exploited by the Western world, and even it was exploited by the Soviet Union leadership when they didn't have good relationship with China. So we know that East Turkestan Islamic movement, they had some elements or some contact, some interaction with the Taliban in Afghanistan, and and Chinese were very much worried about it. I remember I was a Director General of Southeast Asia and Pacific. So the Chinese, I clearly remember that they had a worry about the interaction of the elements from East Turkestan with the Taliban at that time even. And then Chinese have the corridor also with Afghanistan from Wakhan. So they have this passage also. So there was a coming and going. So that is why China started taking interest in peace in Afghanistan, basically prompted by this Xinjiang problem. So there is no doubt about it that we have always been cooperating and coordinating our efforts for peace in Afghanistan with China. So there, China and Pakistan were on one page in this on this subject. So, but at the same time, I must say that the CPEC, we know that China and Pakistan also, they desire to have our neighboring countries in CPEC, including Afghanistan and even Iran. So CPEC should not be confined to Pakistan and the northern areas of Pakistan and then Kashgar. But at the same, it targets the Central Asian republics also. So we have two approaches to Central Asian republics. One is that you start from Gwadar, go through northern areas, and then Kashgar, and then Naryn, Kyrgyzstan. And the second and the most short passage is also from Peshawar to Kabul, Kabul to Tirmiz, Tirmiz, Uzbekistan, and then Central Asia. You have all these countries within your reach. So Pakistan and Afghanistan have been having differences over the access, Pakistan access to Central Asia for quite some years now. The basic, again, the reason for this difference between two Durrani countries is India, because Pakistan has been denying Indian access to Afghanistan through Wagah border. So as a retaliation, Afghanistan, leadership stopped Pakistan's access to Central Asia. Now we have a trade with Central Asian republics, but not through, not directly, but through Afghan traders. So this is how. So China is now, because of CPEC, because of Belt and Road Initiative, is very much in the region, and China would very much like to have peace in Afghanistan, and would like to see Afghanistan connected with this economic spur from Afghanistan to Central Asia, and from Central Asia beyond to Europe. So we must say that China could play a very positive and effective role, of course, in coordination with Pakistan. So this
Great.
is my
Great, sir. Thank you. I think we are since have to cover so many chapters. The Afghan saga is a huge history, and there's so many multiple actors, some known and some unknown. What are those? I mean, Durrani Sahab, can you let us know that, okay, here we see negotiations going on between the US. I will come back to also US, what happens if the new president, what it does. But before that, negotiations are going on between Taliban and US. But as you also, in initial statements, you alluded to, Ambassador Durrani, that the Afghan society is very diverse with a lot of ethnicities, different complexions, and even their own economic and political subcultures, if you will. So what is that US, the peace, sustainable peace will require that all these denominations are weaved together into this process of peace, so that really there is a consensus in Afghanistan for a sustainable peace. What is that? Just educate us on that, those very kind of internal endogenous factors which will make peace sustainable in Afghanistan. Asif Durrani Sahab.
Well, Ambassador Saab, it all depends on Afghans, because as I said, primary responsibility lies with Afghans. We can only facilitate, and that is it. Inside, how they do it, how they achieve that goal, would largely depend upon them, and would largely depend on the success of the intra-Afghan dialogue. Right now, it is moving with a very slow pace, and we are not sure that how each and every ethnic group, which is represented in the government's delegation led by Dr. Abdullah, is going to be satisfied. On the Taliban side, I think their attitude apparently is, although they are a monolith for the time being, their attitude is that it will have to be an Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. So there are fundamental differences between the two sides. And certainly Taliban would want to have a dominating role, which would be resisted by the Ashraf Ghani government and other ethnic groups, unless they are given assurances that their interests would be secured, and they will have the due share in the national cake. So there are numerous challenges which this peace process faces. And in the previous discussion, we talked about the role of the neighbors. Now, I think there's a need that the neighbors should prevail upon the Afghan stakeholders, that unless they sit on the table and decide for themselves, and unless they sue for peace, they should not expect any favors from their neighbors. So the best course would be that all external stakeholders involved in the Afghan peace process should make a resolve, telling the Afghan parties that they will have to come to terms for making peace and making the country stable. Otherwise, they should not expect any assistance from the international community or from them, because enough is enough. Afghan is now third generation in Afghanistan, which is passing through death and destruction. They are not sure what tomorrow will bring for them. So I think, and so when we talk about friends of Afghanistan, so I think that is the biggest message which should go to all the Afghans across the board without playing any favorites. It is just not incumbent upon Pakistan not to play favorites, but incumbent upon all the neighbors of Afghanistan not to play favorites. And same is true for the Indians, that if they want to play favorites, want to play a spoiler's role, then I think India should itself now be prepared, because more than 12 insurgencies are taking place in India. So far, I think Pakistan has not taken benefit of those insurgencies, but Pakistan cannot be kept away from them. So I think if India thinks that they want to pinch Pakistan, so they cannot, because while sitting in the glass house, they cannot throw the stones. So this is just a side issue I want to say, but primarily, I think the message need to be conveyed from all international well-wishers of Afghanistan to the Afghans that enough is enough. You have to negotiate peace, and peace for good. It should not be a temporary peace. Yes, please.
Thank you, Ambassador Asif Durrani Sahab. Imbroglio Sahab, can you tell us what would be, because the negotiations between Taliban and the US came at the time when there was to be a change of guards in the White House. And now we know the results. They have been notified that next president of the US would be Joe Biden, Democratic candidate who was, and Trump, who really wanted to clinch this deal as a flagship of his foreign policy issues, and wanted to probably fulfill his promise to his electorate that he'll get his boys back home before the Christmas, which he's still trying to get it. Is it only to get the boys back home at the Christmas, or is it really a strategic decision by the US stakeholder, as a stakeholder, including all the institutions of the state, to really have a stable peace in Afghanistan, a Afghanistan which is at peace with itself and at peace with others in the region and beyond? Ambassador Imbroglio, sir.
Sir, I was carefully listening to our colleague, Ambassador Asif Durrani Sahab. Yes, I also have this wish that all the neighbors to Afghanistan should make it clear to Afghan people that they have enough of bloodletting, they had enough of killings, they have enough of economic loss and trade. They should now agree to a peace plan and rebuild their country. But sir, in the realism of global politics, this can be a very good wish, but it cannot be translated into reality. I must say that Moscow or the Soviet, the Russian leaders, they have different vested interests in Afghanistan now, because they have already re-established their influence in Central Asian republics, and they have signed many agreements with these states. And at the same time, they are also conscious of the interaction between the Islamic militant groups in Central Asia, particularly the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, or the Hizb ut-Tahrir in Kyrgyzstan, and some other emerging Islamic groups. They have a different vested interest, I said, in peace in Afghanistan. They would not like to have a very dominant role of Taliban, because the past history of Taliban is not so encouraging, you know. Once they stabilized their power in Afghanistan, they were just looking forward to interfering in the Central Asian republics beyond the Osis River. So Moscow must be apprehensive about all this, or their contacts with the Islamic movements there. But at the same time, they would not like to have a dominant role for the people who are supported by the US. Let us say the present Ashraf Ghani government are set up, though they have legitimacy after the Bonn process and the constitutional legitimacy they have had as a result of the Bonn process. So even then, the Moscow, they would like to have equal influence in Afghanistan. China, we have already discussed, and India, we have already discussed. India, I doubt that India will be playing a positive role in Afghanistan to help Taliban to have lion's share in power in Kabul, because this is going to pose a problem. First, the reduction in violence, you call it, or ceasefire, is still the two groups of the Afghan leaders. They have not come to terms to work out a plan for ceasefire, a reduction of violence. The violence is there, it is very much there. And the second is a formula for power sharing. So Ambassador Durrani pointed out that the Taliban have a fundamental ideological difference with the Ashraf Ghani setup on the status of Afghanistan, either Republic or Islamic Emirate or these things, you know. I think these are the issues which are going to pose formidable problems in working out the final peace plan. So I don't think that the Americans will be able to pull out their boys before the Christmas, which is almost, you know, 1 week away. So I don't think so. But maybe before leaving, you know, power, at least President Trump can say that he tried his best to pull out of Afghanistan or end that, you know, long war, which has been a great problem for. He can claim that, you know, before leaving the power, but I don't think that it is going to happen so soon. Even Christmas Day, or even you know, before 20th January. It is not so easy. You know the Afghans, and they are very tough people, I tell you, and their differences are very tough. They are not going to sort out all these things, you know, in a month or 2 or 3. You know, let us hope that if they take another 6 months to finally work out reduction in violence and to have a consensus on power sharing formula, I will be really surprised to see that. But knowing the past history of Afghan people and Afghan leaders, so I'm not so hopeful that is going to happen so soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ambassador Durrani, I would come back to you also on the possibility and your pessimism or optimism for the future peace. But before that, I want you to kindly dilate and educate us on the US aspect of this tangle, if you will. Having spent about $1 trillion in Afghanistan, lost about 2,000 soldiers and thousands
2004.
of wounded. Yes, correct, 2,000. So you think they will be they wash their hands, pick up their packs and go back home and leave Afghanistan to chaos internally and leave it to the other external actors like Russia, China, India, Pakistan and Iran to play? I mean, at least for me, it is hard to believe that they could be that callous, or they could be so narrow-minded in the sense of not protecting their long-term interest, or wasting their so much of investment that they did in the past 2 or 3, 4 decades. What do you think? Is this withdrawal was linked to the electoral process there in the US, or was it only to defang Taliban and be able to have a safe passage from Afghanistan? How do you see, if you were to read the US decision makers' mind, what are these indications? Ambassador Durrani.
Yes, thank you. I think Americans, this was the longest war for the United States in its history. And now the laws of diminishing returns have started to play its role. So whatever they wanted to squeeze out of Afghanistan, they've done it. They deposed the Taliban. Now Osama bin Laden is gone. Al-Qaeda is almost decimated. When they talk about ISIS or Daesh, I think they are not as a formidable threat in Afghanistan as they used to be in Iraq and Syria. So they are not. And you refer to Dr. Adil Irfan, who has joined you, and he has a question which I was reading about
please.
the Taliban.
Adil.
They have differences, political sided on one side and commanders are on the other side. I think by and large, Taliban have kept their unity, and that is why, which was demonstrated in a couple of occasions when they announced ceasefire, and that ceasefire was completely observed. So in that respect, when you compare it inside Afghanistan, or different warlords, different ethnic groups, or even government, so Taliban stand out from their command and control structure, and they have much more disciplined cadres as compared to other ethnic groups, warlords, and religious groups inside Afghanistan. So in that respect, I don't think that there'll be chaos within the Taliban ranks. But yes, chaos is likely to prevail in other groups. So now coming back to the United States is has there's a fatigue element inside the United States. That's why President Trump, being a businessman, when he calculated that they are spending $50 billion per annum in Afghanistan, so he asked his generals whether we can win the war. And the answer was no. So he said, if we cannot win the war and we are wasting money, so that's why he decided to withdraw from Afghanistan, which is why that he signed the deal in February this year. And then the most important thing which President Trump can count and which is being now acknowledged is that since the signing of the Doha Accord in February, not a single American soldier has been killed. So this is a big plus for them. So when he talks about bringing the boys back, So he tried to fulfill his promise. Now, even now, they want to reduce the American troops strength by 15th of January to 2,500. And as per the Doha Accord, they have to withdraw American troops by May 2021. So they have still time. President-elect Joe Biden, he is also in favor of withdrawal, but he calls it a responsible withdrawal. And I think that is quite reasonable observation on his part, because if America has a precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan, so it would be a repeat of the same mistake which the Soviet troops withdrew from Afghanistan, and without leaving a stable order in the country. So if this intra-Afghan dialogue, which is now on a breakup for 20 days, if it succeeds, and hopefully it should. So Ambassador Alam Brohi expressed his pessimism, but the question is, already the war is there. What the warring side have to gain through peace would be stability. And if that, we have already discussed different factors, including spoilers and including the war economy, which can be negative factors in not bringing peace to the country. But at the same time, when the strong message goes from all the external stakeholders that the Afghans will have to come around to bring peace to the country, then I think that would be a strong message. Right now, there is a mixed message from the external stakeholders. And that mixed message actually keeps the Afghan pot boiling. So in my view, Americans now, they will withdraw. They are already involved in 24 different engagements elsewhere in the world, out of which on 7 counts, they are in active war. And they are counting their losses. America has lost its face in the international arena, especially during Donald Trump's administration. America has lost on the internationalism issue because they have been trying to be unilateralists. And that has, in fact, harmed the United States' prestige as well as its influence elsewhere in the world. So in that respect, the Joe Biden administration is likely to restore internationalism and the spirit of internationalism and multilateral reform. This is very important. So in my view, Americans will withdraw. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not lost full hope in Afghanistan. But yes, there are many pitfalls. There are many landmines in the path to peace. And since we're talking about Afghanistan, its history is full of such uncertainties. So one would not be surprised if the dialogue process is derailed. There are many factors still unanswered. So in that respect, but cautious optimism is the safest bet, because in that respect, then those who have suffered, whether they are inside Afghanistan or their neighbors, they will have a realization. And I can vouch for those, at least in Iran and in Pakistan, and also to some extent from Russia, my interactions with the Russian friends. So I think they realize that now time has come that this region should stabilize. Yes.
Well, thank you. I think the cautious optimism is a perspective which is shared, I think, by most of the people. We are like on the last 15 minutes of our webinar. And since the central piece and central theme of our webinar was sustainable peace, and the sustainability of the peace, I think there are several pillars that you all alluded to. The intra-Afghan dialogue, some kind of a concord, international concord, to have a stable Afghanistan and have this region peace. But I think equally important is the Pakistan-Afghan relationships. In my view, that is this central pillar of any architecture, peace architecture, that will be built around Afghanistan. And our Prime Minister recently had a very successful visit to Afghanistan, and I think it was for the first time that they came up with what is called a shared vision, a document which was called shared vision. And what they probably referred to was that this dialogue has to be a sustainable dialogue between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We have to cater to the most difficult questions, challenges, and a structured dialogue. So, what do you see is the future of Afghanistan and Pakistan relationship, and how that could be that shared vision can be implemented? I'll have a take from Alam Brohi Sahab, and then I'll come back to you, Durrani Sahab, with the same question. Alam Brohi Sahab, how do you think that we should implement this shared vision?
Thank you for directing the last question to me. Actually, there is no doubt about it that Pakistan and Afghanistan have inseparable links, historically, ethnically, and even ideologically. We are, of course, Muslims, and we have the same ethnic population on both sides of the border. So there are historical baggages with Afghanistan also and Pakistan also. We know, and there is I think we should not hesitate to say that right from 1947, Afghanistan has never been, let us say, had never had a friendly government towards Pakistan, or its support was not forthcoming for Pakistan. But on certain important occasions, of course, Afghanistan, they not only maintained their neutrality, but I think tacitly they supported Pakistan also. We should not go into the details that they, opposed the application of Pakistan for UN membership, and they had full-fledged support for Pashtunistan question, and even they did not have, publicly have, they did not have publicly, accept this border between the two countries, which were the agreements of
Durrani line
were signed, line, and they were signed even finally were even reconfirmed by Afghan leadership in 1923 or something. So there are historical baggages, and Afghans should be very conscious about it. And then, of course, we have also some historical baggages, or at least what Afghan people have been, complaining about, that Pakistan has never accepted Afghanistan as a sovereign, independent country, making its decisions, political and sovereign decisions. First, this is what they say, and then that Pakistan has interests for, security depth in Afghanistan, etc. This, and then they say that Pakistan always sees Afghanistan, its relations with Afghanistan through the prism of India, that they want Afghan not to have independent and sovereign relationship with India, or they should take into consideration the bilateral relationship, either positive or negative, between Pakistan and India. So they complain about it also, and they had some complaints about their transit trade also. Though Pakistan has also complaints about it, that the containers which come through our seaport meant for Kabul. They go there and they didn't open them. They return them back to Pakistan, and they are available in our Bala markets or smuggling goods, all these things. So these are historical baggages which both sides have to take care of. Even Afghan people and Afghan leadership and Pakistan leadership, if we overcome, these historical baggages and we correct our perception in the Afghan people, that Pakistan is just interested in Afghanistan, a peaceful, stable Afghanistan, which is, in peace with itself and its neighbors. And we want a stable Afghanistan. We want economically prospering Afghanistan. So we have to convince them about our intentions, all these things, just to overcome the historical, the misconceptions and misunderstandings. And similarly, the Afghans, they have to show their positive attitude towards bilateral relationship with Pakistan. They should now settle down on the recognition of the underlying, and then the Afghanistan, Pashtunistan question is already dead now. We do not expect any revival of it. So it is there,
Thank you.
all these things we have to overcome.
Thank you.
Before
Thank you.
looking up for
Thank you.
a good
Thank you.
relationship with Afghanistan.
Thank you. Thank you, Almur Saab. Last words, Ambassador Asif Durrani. You gave your assessment of cautious optimism, but keeping that as a guide, what Pakistan can do? Do you have one or two recommendations for the government of Pakistan to make sure that this triangle, that Afghan-Pakistan relations they move towards a positive, and they really they can move towards supplementing the sustainable peace in Afghanistan. Yes, please.
Well, Pakistan and Afghanistan enjoy a symbiotic relationship. President Karzai used to call both Pakistan and Afghanistan as Siamese twins who are conjoined at the hip. So, and I subscribe to that. Ambassador Brohi has given us a very elaborate expose on his views. Let's keep our facts in order. Afghanistan, while it opposed Pakistan at the UN, but it is the same Afghanistan which has never supported India on the Kashmir dispute. It has maintained a neutral stance. Afghanistan in 65 and 71 wars kept neutrality, and King Zahir Shah told our ambassadors to pull out your troops from the western border. So which we did. And he said, I'll not stab you in the back. So I'm privy to those archives. And then on 5th October 2005 earthquake in Pakistan, I was posted to Kabul. I was Charge Affairs then. And President Karzai called me. He said, I have got 6 helicopters. 2 are out of order. 4 are in running condition, along with 50-member team of doctors and nurses. He dispatched to Pakistan all his 4 helicopters. Mind you, it is 2005. Afghanistan was still limping back to a semblance of normalcy. So when I say symbiotic relationship, it is very much there. While Afghan leadership may have been criticizing Pakistan, Ambassador Brohi has talked about the Durrani line. It is a mindset inside Afghanistan, which is primarily etched because of the access which Pakistan provides to the Afghans. Almost 50 to 60,000 Afghans straddle the border every day without visas. But in our negotiations and in our international documents, it is always a border, international border. There, Afghanistan never talks about Durrani line. So it is even our educated people, they talk about Durrani line without understanding that it is an international border. And in the international documents between Afghanistan and Pakistan, it is written as international border, not Durrani line. So I think we have to correct certain misperceptions. And Afghans, yes, why they are so concerned, reason being that Afghanistan is dependent as far as food is concerned. Almost 3 million tons of wheat is grown for Afghanistan. So they need at least 3 million tons of wheat from Pakistan, which goes every year. Then for their primary and secondary health care, especially secondary and tertiary health care, Afghanistan is dependent on Pakistan. Almost 95 to 97% Afghans, they depend on Pakistan. So for Quetta and Peshawar hospitals, if you look at it, especially the private hospitals, they are full of Afghans. Even they come to Islamabad at Pakistan Institute of Medical Sciences and other, even they avail our official facilities. On education, almost 30,000 Afghan students are studying in our colleges and universities. This is over and above what Pakistan government has offered scholarships to the Afghans. And yes, they would raise. There are some people who would be on the opposite camp. They will criticize Pakistan. They will do everything. Pashtunistan slogan is a bygone era slogan. It does not hold any validity in this day and age. And then one thing we should not forget, there are more Pashtuns in Pakistan than in the whole population of Afghanistan. And then people of Pakistani Pashtuns, they don't look up towards leadership towards Afghans. In fact, it is the other way around. So Afghanistan or their leadership are not a role model for the Pashtuns of Afghanistan. So we should also remove those misperceptions about that. When they talk about Pashtun unity, then Pashtun unity can take place and it is very much there. But when I was posted there, I was interviewed by their television. They said, we are same people, why this border? I said, there are 22 Arab countries. They speak the same language, same religion and all that. Why they are in 22 countries? So it is not the question of being in separate countries. The question is that if we have access to each other, then the countries does not matter. And then in the case of Afghanistan and Pakistan, even if the governments, they are opposed to each other, there is a symbiotic relationship between the people of the two countries. So in that respect, I think there is why I say cautiously optimistic about this whole thing is that there is this blood relationship on the both sides. They are in touch with each other and they realize everything and they support each other at the time of crisis. So I mentioned those support which have come about by both from Afghanistan and from Pakistan. Now, with regard to the power play inside Afghanistan, that Afghans will have to decide. And that's why I say then external forces, they have to, in fact, avoid meddling in the Afghan peace process and their negotiation. And then my advice would also be for Pakistan, don't play the favorites, just facilitate. And for the other external stakeholders, please contribute to the peace of Afghanistan and tell the Afghan interlocutors that their assistance would be linked to how successfully they negotiate. And then third, America cannot do the national building. What America can do is now hand over this whole project to the United Nations. United Nations has the necessary expertise for the rehabilitation of Afghanistan. And fourth is regarding the repatriation of Afghan refugees. If you create those pull factors inside Afghanistan, then refugees would want to return, at least bulk of the refugees. So these are my humble suggestions. Thank you so much. I think we have lost Ambassador Baluch.
Looks so.
Yeah. He's not visible.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
Maybe he's gone somewhere.
No, he may have touched the wrong button.
I don't know. Maybe he's coming back or.
That's
So, Asif Saab, how are you otherwise?
Sir, I'm fine. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good. Okay, that's great, huh?
Yeah.
So actually, when he
So-
told me that you will be with me, so I
No, same
consented
here.
to
I was
that.
looking forward to sharing this forum with you and enjoyed. In
Yeah,
fact,
we have been sharing, our articles on Afghanistan.
Gigi.
But you have recently written 2 or 3 very good articles on it. I was not following it as closely as maybe you were. So, but
Afghanistan has been with me ever since Soviet troops entered Afghanistan. Then I
Yeah.
used to be a journalist. I was working with the Muslims, so I followed Afghanistan, and then in the foreign service somehow I was linked to this subject when posted to India, when posted to Iran, when in '98 Taliban in fact captured Mazar Sharif and Iranian diplomats were killed. So, and then onwards to New York when the Bonn process was signed after 9/11. And subsequently in Afghanistan itself, I was posted to Afghanistan. I was deputy head of mission. So, and then in London, when they had in fact talked about reconciliation in 2010 onwards, during Obama's time.
yeah.
And, then as the DGUN, I was dealing with some aspects of Afghanistan. And then additional secretary at the presidency with Mr. Zardari. So all matters, including Afghanistan, were dealt. And then, of course, as ambassador in UAE and then Iran, again, I was dealing with Afghanistan always remained on my plate. So Afghanistan is like a kambal, it's blanket, it doesn't leave you.
No, you have been in the region for long, so as ambassador, as a CDA, then I think you had a lot of interest in Afghanistan. So that's
the
good.
reason is that
Actually,
I have the advantage. I know both Persian and Pashto. I know Dari, and
yeah.
so that was the advantage.
You speak Dari also, huh?
Sorry?
You speak Dari also.
Yes, Dari is in fact, I speak Dari, but in Iran, I brushed my Dari into Persian also. So I was posted to Iran twice. Yes. So,
Persian, a lovely language. So Baluch is really missing. So what should we do now?
I don't know. Let's call him on the mobile.
Please, please. Otherwise, we should, put it off and.
Ambassador Saab is coming in next 2 minutes. I guess there is some internet issue at his end. I'm still talking to him.
Okay.
I request Ambassador Durrani and Ambassador Brohi to continue with the session.
Okay, so we will continue. We'll have our own talk. So please don't record it.
Okay. I think it is being recorded, no? Even we can talk now, but it will not be off the. It will be recorded as a part of the video. So we have to be careful. It's a very interesting region, I must say. So we cannot in any way separate from Afghanistan, The links we have are historically inseparable. You cannot. So I think
that's correct.
We have to live together. We are condemned to live together, actually. So,
No, sir, it will be, I think, okay. I think we can.
inshallah,
We
inshallah.
should have just confidence rather than, putting too much premium to security and all that.
No, I'm
So,
not pessimist, about the situation whole. Well, little apprehensions I have about the Afghans themselves. They are very
yeah.
inflexible in their differences. Either it is ideological or ethnic. They don't have
There's
any
no
positive or a
ideological,
very encouraging record on this issue.
there's no ideological thing.
They have
Taliban and
no,
Afghani,
Asif, they
Taliban and
have
Ashrafani,
I mean
both sides.
religious sectarian they have
In fact,
sectarian
this
differences there.
sectarianism has gone from our soil rather than
Yeah,
Afghanistan.
yeah.
So, so this is
Some,
yeah.
I'm extremely sorry for some technical issue at Ambassador Ghulam, and if it's all right, we can close the session for now. If you're done with the discussion, whenever we can close the session. Okay, sir.
Well, we are okay. I think we have done it.
All right.
Yeah, we can. I can talk to Ambassador Brohi anytime. So thank you so much for having us.
Okay, sir.
Please
Thank you.
convey my regards to Ambassador Baluch, and really enjoyed talking.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, Asif. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Huh?
Thank you. For the office.
Take care. Take care. Yeah.
You too.